Hi, thank you for joining me. My name is Darren Stevenson. You can find me on Facebook as the Darren Stevenson in San Francisco. I also run the website organelle.org, which is the kind of fossilized remains of my developmental paths and speculations. And some of my writing can be found on my blog at wondercloud.wordpress.com. I've been talking and thinking a lot lately about false collectives and how people and groups, including our social networks, get converted to assets and resources for purposes and fictional agendas that we would ordinarily have nothing to do with and never allow. We would never allow them to even exist, never mind proceed. It's really easy for us to be confused and fleeced, in a sense, by the milieu in which we're presently involved. The internet itself can be leveraged as a sort of Potemkin village. This is a situation where you set up an empty city or habitable terrain, and then as people move into that terrain, thinking they're getting something for free, you actually fleece them of all kinds of resources they brought with them, and then you convert them to purposes that they would never ordinarily serve. I'm going to talk a lot about that right now, and I'm going to specifically focus on the idea of electronic activism. A lot of what we have in our social networks, particularly in places like Facebook and Google+, are confusing situations where, and this is much more common on Facebook, where we have what appear to be activist organizations or groups or pages that are actually serving entirely the other kinds of purposes. In other words, purposes that are not oriented toward our education, our unification, our empowerment, and they don't help us actually change the problems that they're making money talking about. In fact, in many cases, they pour cash into the coffers of those peoples, groups, and forces that they seem to be sort of heroically opposing. Now, some of the activist pages on Facebook are much worse about this than others. There's one I'm going to single out particularly. It's a group called Sustainable Man. This is a guy named Chris Agnos and his brother who've apparently invested large sums of money to produce a publicly sort of pseudo-famous little page there where they get hundreds of thousands of views, and the articles they post are often copied hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions of times. These people are not informed about the nature of activism at all, and in fact what they have there is a business. Many of the things that they post that are copied hundreds or thousands or millions of times, they don't even care that that process is obliterating living beings in the environment. They think it's just free to make electronic nonsense, memes, and things like that that fail to empower us, that pay the forces that they seem to think they are opposing lots of money, and Facebook is one of those forces, and that largely just kind of propagate a false armchair reactivity or mutual back-patting kind of false activism. That's a deadly process because it has a lot of effects that nobody's examining. The first is that the media that they're spreading doesn't actually make us more intelligent. It doesn't bring us together with new ways of knowing, seeing, and acting in unison to effect change rapidly. It doesn't resolve the problems that they often post in the light of, and in many cases the things that they're posting, if they were actually followed through as real ideas or processes, would be so incredibly misfounded that they would cause more harm than the sort of fake good that they seem to be advertising. And one of the problems with people and organizations like this is they have no interest in correcting their behavior whatsoever. In fact, riding on the wave of their own popularity and fame, they simply just go deeper and deeper and deeper into the business model of false activism. And there are, of course, authentic collectives and authentic activists, which I'm going to speak toward in a little while. But right now, what I really want to highlight are some problems that are being wildly overlooked. The first problem is that when we pay attention to media, we say the word pay attention, we are actually paying something, okay? So we may think that it's free or that there's no result from our constant and ceaseless liking and clicking and sort of chiming in or leaving our 2 cents. Actually, those things have huge costs. human attention is one of the most valuable resources on the planet. When we misspend it, we not only lose the capacity to spend it wildly, but we spend it in ways that support processes, people, and cultures that are attacking the things they are pretending to protect. When that happens, we all become dumb, literally. Our intelligence takes a massive hit. We are not allowed to form intelligent, effective collectives. We get a pressure valve-like situation that bleeds our attention off to make profits and popularity for people and processes that are opposing our actual goals as people who care about each other, our intelligence, our children, our environment, and the future. After attempting to talk to the people at Sustainable Man, they basically just insulted me and said that they didn't like my attitude. Well, I don't like them spending tens or 20 or hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't like them spending the attention of millions of people to promote memes and little electronic pieces of garbage that get copied 1 million times and have zero effect on the problem. If one of us is wrong, me or them, I invite you to make your own decision. Here I am talking about a way that we can learn how to not be taken in by this, and there they are saying, I have a bad attitude. One of us is probably incorrect. I'm sure you can make the right decision about that. Do your own research, come to your own conclusions. So when we pay attention to media from falsely oriented collectives, or collectives who are either so ignorant or so driven by the market and by popularity that they're not required to check what they're doing or even determine if it works or is dangerous or what the outcomes are, they just sort of roll ahead on their profits and popularity. When that happens, everybody loses. Everybody. Even the people who are organizing that are losing because they probably have good intentions, right? They're probably not intentionally destroying the agenda of activism and our hope of doing something about the environmental problems that we've got to solve immediately, of doing something about the fact that we're all serving and being converted to assets for false collectives. They're probably not bad people. They probably really care about all these things. But because they're so popular and they've got so much backing of constant millions of likes and shares and all of this, they're just not required to even take a look and see if they're doing anything wrong. And whenever someone comes along who says, hey, the cost of what you're doing could easily exceed any possible benefit that you might generate, they don't care. Then there's another problem, which is this. When an image or video or any kind of media gets copied thousands or millions of times, that copying doesn't tend to make us intelligent. It doesn't bring us together. It rarely gives us outlooks and perspectives that we can use together to become more intelligent, to make better choices, and actually to effectively, forcibly oppose the problems and the collectives and the forces that are wiping us out, turning us into slaves, fleecing us, and essentially repurposing our humanity. That's what's going on here. Our actual human existence is being repurposed invisibly for the benefit of corporations, the GOP, Facebook, Google, fictional collectives that have no real existence other than as corporations or corpse-orations. Corporations are a lethal kind of false collective that we need to be extremely cautious about supporting in any way, and that we also need to be able to dissolve, punish, or obliterate when they go haywire and become lethal in their activities. When we share media, even a single image, it has a cost that grows over time. As that piece of media is copied, shared, as we pay attention to it, and as we spend electricity and storage media to store, back up, transmit, share, but also to examine and analyze, because as we know, many governments now have intelligence assets that gather all of the things that we share, and they examine them to see if those things pose some kind of a threat. So every time we're sharing any kind of media, the number of ways in which the deadly costs of doing that increase grows. In other words, not just the costs grow, but the numbers of ways in which those costs expand also grow. We need to be very carefully aware of that And we also need some solutions to keep that from continuing to happen, because as more and more of us share electronic images as part of our relationships online, we're actually building a giant wave of data that just keeps growing geometrically with each passing interval. Nature will not survive that. Our own cultures can't survive it. We are already, you and I, competing against data objects for survival, for resources, and for human attention, and we are losing that competition. That's ridiculous. No living being, especially not a human child, should ever have to compete against a data object or the agenda of a false collective and lose. But that's what's happening. And no one's even paying attention. We're not even doing the accounting. No one knows what it costs to share an image 1,000 times. No one knows how many human lives, what ecologies are destroyed, how many thousands or millions of animals are destroyed. And believe me, they are, because all of the things we do electronically have actual costs in the environment. And part of those come from us paying attention, and part of them come from us paying energy and storage and protecting that data, backing it up, analyzing, etc. And part of it comes from not doing something better that actually does something amazing for us, which we certainly can do with these assets. And I have a plan to demonstrate how we can explosively and radically change all of this. But for the moment, before I can get that plan into action, I want us all to take a look at some of these situations. And there's another very specific thing I want to talk about related to Facebook. There's a gentleman who recently posted a video. You can look this up yourself. I will try to find his name and link it to this one when I'm done. That talks about how the algorithms that Facebook uses to decide what we see in our news feed are really grossly misusing both our attention and our trust. And what that means is Facebook is manipulating what's in the news feed so that we don't see each other's shares. We don't see each other's posts. We don't see the posts that we would like to see. What we're seeing are the posts that Facebook wants us to see, that will make them money. And also, they try to get us into a situation where once we get some attention for the great deal of work that we do, many of us, to create useful and informative and even intelligent Facebook assets, instead of rewarding us for that, they punish us. So what that means is, while Sustainable Man, quote unquote, gets like 10 million pieces of likes and sharing each day, I will get 30. Yeah. And I'll post 20 to 30 creatively organized, intelligent pieces of information that empower people's intelligence and ways of thinking and perspective. I'll get 20 likes. Sustainable Man, who invests lots of money in Facebook, will get 100,000 likes on a single piece of media that is basically meaningless. It's just another meme. It's been copied 50,000 times in 50,000 other places. Right? Our intelligence won't survive that. Our relational intelligence won't survive it. Our social network, the intelligence of our social networks is being actually just sort of ground down into garbage by all of this. We're being rewarded when we do the wrong things that support causes we oppose. And we're being charged fees. Facebook wants you to pay, wants me to pay, so that just a few of my posts and posts of people who are actually content creators and are doing something that could really make a difference, they want to make sure that stuff doesn't get seen. They want to charge me to have just my own social network see the posts that I'm posting. That's absolutely wrong. In fact, functionally, that's evil. Seriously, that's just plain evil. And it damages us because it rewards the wrong kinds of behaviors, it rewards the wrong kinds of collectives, and it rewards absolutely the wrong kinds of content for existing and being propagated. But there's something even a little scarier going on. I subscribe to a lot of activist pages because I myself am an intelligence activist. I'm very concerned about human intelligence and how we can protect and enhance that in tightly knit little networks that grow and constellate and become explosively powerful. And I have some amazing plans that I'm going to share with you about that, but not today. What I'm going to talk about today, and what I want to finish with here, because I'm running out of time, and thank you for staying with me this long, is this. On pages like Mother Jones, Truthout, and AlterNet, what happens to these pages is very interesting when you look at which portions of their output make it into our news feeds. If you look at the actual pages of say, for example, Mother Jones, you'll see a large array of various topics. And they post many news items, per day. Some of these are interesting, some of them are useful. But there are two problems with these pages. The first one is, like almost any modern journalistic endeavor, these pages make money and get benefits when they get attention. And what this has resulted in is the wrong kind of journalism. This is journalism that is basically spun to outrage, upset, frighten, and make us feel helpless, isolate us, and get us to not respond intelligently or with any kind of not respond with the ability to unify and take advantage of our unity and our beliefs and our agreements in order to make change. What happens instead is we get shock journalism. So Truthout, or excuse me, AlterNet is actually the worst offender. We'll constantly just post some piece of news item and say, like, you're going to be outraged by this. That's all they say. So they're just copying a news item from somewhere else and then telling you what to do to be outraged. That's useless. Actually, when we're frightened or outraged, our intelligence plummets. There's a neurochemical process whereby we lose working memory, we lose access to creativity, and we just become reactive. In that mode, we can easily be made into slaves. And in fact, this is the kind of thing that is done in prisons. So the first part of the problem is these quote-unquote activist organizations are not taking their role seriously or intelligently. What they've done is they have become converted into shock journalism outlets. That ruins our intelligence. It ruins our chance of affecting the problems that they're pretending that they oppose. And then they make lots of money because the more frightened and outraged we are, the more we will share this kind of media, react to it, like it, and so on. Again, this takes a precious investment that we might have made in change and flushes it down the toilet into the and actually makes money for them and for many of the forces that they claim to be opposing, like Facebook. Facebook is owned by people who frankly don't care about us. They will punish you for attempting to make friends. I currently cannot contact anyone who's not already my friend on Facebook because I was punished for sending 2 friend requests. 2. To people who liked my post. They made me sign, they signed me out of Facebook, they made me sign back in, and like a prisoner, they told me, you're not allowed to make friends here, okay? And not only that, because what you're doing could be seen as harassment, sending friend requests to people who like my posts, that does seem very harassing, doesn't it? There must be something wrong with my mind. What was I thinking? On a social network, I was trying to make a friend. Surely I should be imprisoned for this, or even tortured, maybe fined, who knows? Some kind of court case has to come out of it, right? This is what's going on. We live in a situation where we're being trained to act and respond and think like prisoners, essentially. The activist pages that don't post material that empowers, brings us together, organizes our agreement, right, into a force that can be leveraged against the problems that we need to solve and want to solve together, against the forces that we do not believe in, that we want brought down and transformed. Whenever they don't help us do that directly, whenever they frighten us, whenever they tell us to be outraged, whenever they paint us as victims, they are serving the enemies of our humanity. They are serving the enemies of our human history and strife. They are serving the enemies of life on earth and the enemies of our future. They're serving the enemies of our intelligence and our unity. And our unity has more power than any force on earth. If we can just organize a tiny portion of it, a modest portion, say even 10% of the agreement that we could leverage right now on any social network, we could change any nation on earth in 24 hours. Maybe it would take a week. It would not take a month. Most of these activist pages are doing the opposite of that. Every single post has nothing to do really with protecting or saving anything. I want to just briefly touch on one other issue, the petition, which actually means to be small as a force, petite ion. Yeah? If you have to petition rapists to leave your daughter alone and then hope that somehow some kind of result will come because the people who are raping your daughter actually are getting intelligence and money from you doing these petitions, you're going to fail. Okay, if you have to petition murderers to stop wiping people out, it's not going to work. If you have to petition corporations who don't even exist except as legal fictions to stop obliterating the history and hope of life on Earth and our living environments from which our own minds emerge moment to moment, if you have to write petitions asking them, please don't wipe out the oceans, you'll be dead long before those petitions will matter. So if you think that that's activism, you're confused. I don't want you to stop signing petitions. Go ahead and keep signing them. But realize that that's nearly useless, because what actually has to happen is that some kind of a body with actual that can leverage its agreement and power as a group needs to confront those forces and stop them in their tracks immediately, right now. Stop them by any means necessary. Hopefully by a peaceful means, hopefully by an intelligent means that can transform them into something useful. But if not, by any means necessary. They are wiping out life on Earth. They are staining the meaning of what it means to be a human being. They are changing the nature of human intelligence with lies. And effectively, we've got to stop them now. This brings up the point that I'm going to touch on of false experts. So you've got false activisms. You've got people in science telling you your brain is a computer. Dead wrong. A single cell in your body has more computational power than all the computers ever built by humanity. Your brain has nothing to do with computers. Okay? You've got religious authorities telling you that Earth is a battleground ready for Armageddon, or that it's a place we should have jihads, or even worse, the New Age people telling you, like, quantum physics means you can wish your way to a happy new world. You've got basically a whole array of false collectives, each with their own agendas that are just as absurd as each other, fighting to convert you to become their agents. We need to stop serving them. And we need to tell them that we recognize that they're just fictions, that they're lying, that they're not doing what they're claiming. There's nothing heroic about believing your brain is a computer. There's nothing heroic about believing that the Earth is a place you just burn down so there can be an apocalypse because you misunderstood sacred stories from history. There's nothing heroic about the New Age people telling you that there's some kind of a Pleiadian star command in the sky that's going to save us from our rampant stupidity. There's nothing heroic about an activist organization that's just wearing the costume, okay? Those people are lethally misguided, and we have to correct them together now. Now here's the last point I want to make. In those pages that actually do have some important content, and Mother Jones is one of them, Truthout is another, AlterNet, you can maybe find some of your own that you think are more or less doing something actually valuable rather than just spinning electronic garbage ad infinitum. But in the ones that really are doing something, there's another problem, which is this. If you just watch which of their posts make it into the news feed, there's something very suspicious going on. The posts that make it into the newsfeed are posts that support the agendas of Facebook, the GOP, and Fox News. So that it actually starts to look like Mother Jones, 50% of their posts are on Fox News. Or Truthout, 50% of their posts are about the GOP or Fox News. When in fact, if you look at their pages, maybe 2 to 4% of their posts are about that. But in the newsfeed, which is governed by Facebook's algorithms, right? What actually leaks into the newsfeed from those pages is only the stuff that's making Facebook money, that is actually acting as a platform of support for the GOP, and that's constantly advertising for Fox News. What do you suppose the effects of that are? Well, money. Facebook makes money. Fox News gets lots more attention and money. And the GOP gets free publicity, or even cash paid paid advertising for themselves. Yeah? So we need to find ways, first of all, just as members of an electronic community, to protest this and to disagree wildly, to talk about it constantly, and to enter into dialogue with each other openly and in a friendly, supportive manner that gives us new ways to organize our agreement and leverage the power that we have in that agreement, and that power is unstoppable. Trust me. We haven't even touched it, so that's why we're all so afraid. We haven't touched any of the powers of our human agreement or collectivity. We can do that, start doing it right now. The first sort of steps of that process involve learning about the features of the environments that we're interacting in. And that's part of what I'm doing here today, is trying to help us gain some perspectives on that. Many of you will have your own ideas and perspectives, which I deeply value and would love to hear. Please, by all means, contact me. Let's work together. Let's cooperate. Let's build community together, because that's the power we have with which we can change the world. Before I go, I'm just going to pick out one authentic collective and show you the difference. The Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. This is a collective organized by human beings to rescue living intelligences older than the models that we have of time itself, older than the universe, older than our idea of how old Earth is. These intelligences are so irreplaceable that they're probably the single most valuable beings and places on the planet. The Sea Shepherd Conservation Society is physically intervening in the slaughter of whales by actually ramming their ships into illegal whaling vessels, shutting them down, telling the whole world what they're doing, and taking part of the stain off of us. Because now, with a collective that's truthfully organized, it's organized for an authentic, beautiful purpose, what happens is we can then see that to be human means to protect beautiful, intelligent beings. Yeah? And the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society is one of the authentic collectives on Facebook that I want to encourage you to absolutely support. Copy their media, add your own intelligence, cooperate with them. What they're doing is a bold example of the power of human agreement in plain, simple understanding of the crucial importance of our ecologies, the history of life on Earth, our capacity to protect each other, our humanity, and our future. Now that looks like activism, and that looks like intelligence, and that is something that our children in the future will be proud of. We need a lot more of that kind of collective. We need none of the other kinds. Together, with and for each other, and the future of life on Earth. I thank you for joining me.